Good morning, everybody. Another episode of Denmark and Marsh. I'm Dylan Denmark. That is Graham Marsh on this episode. Uh, Graham, it's been 2 weeks since we last spoke. Um, the game last night. Essentially, it was basically you fell into a hole you couldn't get out of. I mean, when Georgia is shooting, well, what is it, 70% from the field? I think it was 68 to be exact, and then 80% from three or whatever it was. Todd Golden said right after the game, it was too big of a hole to recover from, and you have to play perfect. And Florida almost did, and they did take the lead. And then it came down to a matter of free throws, which Florida is not good at the moment, and they haven't been as of lately. But when they were down that big of margin, I didn't think they were going to win, but I knew they could come back because you just saw from the previous weekend when they played LSU, they could easily go on a 22-6 run in the snap of a finger. So it's not something I'm really looking at and saying, I hope they can recover from, or, is this loss going to linger? I think it was just a bad loss. Georgia shot out of their mind. They were one of the worst three-pointing shooting teams. They started 7 for 9 from beyond the arc, and you kind of just move on from here.
The season's over. No, I'm just kidding. The season's not over. It felt like it when I was watching. I get so mad watching the games. You watch games. Absolutely right what you just said. It's a bad loss. Hacker United Gator bites last. Right, they were. I just freaking hate that it has to come to Mike White and the Georgia Bulldogs. It makes me so angry. Can it be to anybody else? I hate that it came to them. Every time they show Mike White's freaking face on the screen, God, they drive me insane. Georgia was running that high screen action pretty much right as they crossed half court early in the game. Florida was going underneath it. They were shooting and they were making them, and they were making them pay. And even when Florida adjusted to that high screen action, they were still – Georgia had gotten in a shooting rhythm by that point. So pretty much the rest of the first half, they were shooting the ball pretty effectively. And to your point, they're not traditionally a good three-point shooting team. But Mike White came in the game with a good game plan to get them shooting well from jump, and they did. And Florida – Mike White did his best to Mike White this game, right? He literally did give them the lead back, right, late in the game. Dylan, I'm not a blame the refs guy. I'm not, and that's not the reason. That's not the reason Florida lost the game. I want to make that very clear. Florida did not lose the game because of the officiating. Florida lost the game because of poor free throw shooting, because Walter Clayton did not have his best outing, and because defensively it took them too long to make an adjustment and slow Georgia down with what they were running offensively. That's why Florida lost the game. However, in the second half, some of those calls were so egregious, it was unbelievable. And I do believe that if some of those calls were not made, then it would have been enough momentum to propel Florida to win the basketball game. I'm not tripping too hard about it because Florida didn't deserve to win the basketball game. They didn't play well enough to win the basketball game. It was just aggravating on a night where Florida's already not playing well to, at certain points when you felt like they were stringing some stops together, they were getting some buckets, and they were starting to go on some runs to close this gap. It always felt like that they couldn't have that clean. They obviously ended up doing so at the end with a couple of minutes left. But before that, with more time left, it felt like they could never make that big surge that this team makes a lot. And you know what I'm talking about, that second half surge. A lot of times it's early in that second half that this team really just clicks in a game and they go on a crazy run, right? And if they're winning, then they blow the team out. If they're losing, they close the gap and end up winning the game. It was herky-jerky because of some calls. There were some calls that I like. There was one on Thomas Houck that was unbelievable, and he just simply did not foul the guy. And they called a foul, and the phantom goaltending on Ruben Chinyelu that they ended up taking back, but having to stop the game, go back to the review, look at that, like that stops flow and momentum of a game, and that's when Florida's got some. They had a little something, and that stuff was really frustrating. again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm blaming the officiating on why they lost. They lost because of a myriad of other reasons that nobody can control but the Florida Gators. Look, from 10,000 feet, once I get over the emotion of the fact that it's Georgia, which I don't know if I will for a while because I'm still upset, it's probably not the worst thing that they lost at this time. Because at the end of the day, in terms of seeding, in terms of positioning, it's not the end of the world. Like this will probably bump them down to a 2 seed. It's not that big a difference to be a 1 or 2 seeds win the national championship all the time, right? It's not a huge deal. And it probably is just the right. I mean, we're looking today, we're doing this podcast February 26th. Yesterday was the 25th. It might be just the right kick in the ass to get this team that last little bit of motivation and fuel to be playing their best basketball in March.
My biggest thing with them playing in March is their free throws. I mean, I looked it up. I didn't know there was over 300 schools that are in D1 basketball. I think Florida was like somewhere in the 200s at like 70-something%. They're like low 70s. I mean, you're going to go to a game in March in the tournament where you're going to get to a close game and you're going to have to make free throws in the final 2 minutes of the game. Like, that's going to happen. I think that is – what do you think? Do you think that's the biggest concern for Florida right now?
I think the biggest concern for Florida is some of these slow starts. Because this isn't the first game where this was the most egregious example, but this isn't the first game where, you look up, if you were to turn the game on 5 minutes late, you look up and Florida's down 10 or whatever to an inferior opponent. That's happened more than one time this year. Now, normally they've been able to course correct and win the game. So it hasn't been something that has been a huge talking point because they've been able to win most of these games with some comebacks. But the problem, this is what happened in the Missouri game. This is how they lost the Missouri game. When you start the game slow in basketball, it's not just that you're losing the game. It's that in that first like 5 minutes of a game is so pivotal to shooters on the perimeter. Even teams that shoot the ball poorly, there's someone on their team that can get hot if you allow them, right? This is SEC basketball, right? And like last night, that Missouri game, because those are the two examples of truly losing to inferior competition. The other two losses, Kentucky at Rupp, Tennessee on the road. I know Tennessee beat them pretty good, but I'm not tripping too hard about those. It's more so the two where they lost to pretty inferior competition. You let guys that have a nice shooting stroke get hot to start the game, and that's going to be a problem throughout the game, right? That it's almost like in football, Dylan. We talk about this in football all the time. It's almost like in football where we talk about, in that first drive, you got to have a couple of plays to scheme some of your best players open and get them involved in the offense, right? It's the same thing with a shooter. It's them being able to put a couple of shots up, see the ball go through the hoop early. When you're playing against those guys, and Lord knows we know there's going to be shooters in the tournament, that's my biggest concern. As far as the free throws, I don't disagree with you. They got to make the free throws. The free throws are weird. They come in waves with the Gators. There's certain games where they make the majority of their free throws and it's not a problem. And there's other games like last night where I remember the Kentucky game, for example, they shot free throws poorly as well. There are certain games like that where it feels like they can't buy a free throw. It feels like every time they go to the line, they're going to miss. And I agree with you, though, that is something that in the tournament is going to bite you if you're not careful.
Yeah, I kind of agree with most of what you said there. And we'll move on. A&M Saturday game day is going to be there. When was the last time game day was at Florida basketball?
2017.
I don't even remember that. The last one I remember was when remember Tebow hyped up the crew. That video that went around.
Yeah, I think
so. he kind of reenacted something similar to what he did at the halftime of the national championship game when they played Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's the last time I remember them being there. But they play A&M at home, and then you play Alabama on the road, and then that's Florida's last road game. I mean, it feels like they've been on the road forever, it feels like. Rob S. says it was a classic trap game, big opponent at home this weekend. Starts coming back from injury, trying to work him in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
sorry to cut you off. So Rob brings up a point that makes me think of something that I didn't want to say. So appreciate you, Rob, as always. Something I think too that happened, Dylan, that is not Florida's fault. It's just kind of a byproduct of where they are in the season, and this will be corrected as time moves on. I think we talked about. I know Hacker and I talked about on Gator Bites. I think you and I talked about a couple weeks ago as well. Florida's injuries that they had with Walter Clayton against Tennessee turning his ankle, Elijah Martin with the hip, Alex Conlon with his ankle. Because they're not serious injuries, they honestly ended up being big blessings because it got some other guys more involved that are now a bigger part of the rotation, and it's ultimately made Florida a lot deeper of a basketball team. Now they're one of the deepest teams in the country because some of these other guys have been given an opportunity to step up. Now all of a sudden Denzel Aberdeen plays more minutes, Urban Quavzar plays more minutes, Thomas Houck has started a lot of this time, and he's passed that test with flying colors.
That LSU game was wild that he had.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know. So, but the thing is, right now, especially with Conlon coming back, because he's normally such a big part of what they do, I do think, and Han Lockton coming back, obviously, I do think something that I think was evident early, especially early in that Georgia game, Florida right now is a little bit of a victim of their own depth and their own new rotations because these injuries have forced them to play with rotations, right? And I was thinking about it. Throughout this run, they've been playing so well, so we haven't really talked much about it. They have not had like a consistent rotation for like a month. They have not had a consistent, okay, these 5 are the starters. These guys are coming off the bench at this time. This is how we're going to do it. This is how many minutes everyone can expect to play. This is kind of when your rotation, your substitution pattern is going to be. By this point in the season, most teams have done that same rotation over and over and over and over again, with the exception of a couple tweaks here and there. Florida, it's not Todd Golden's fault. It's not the team's fault. It's just a result of the injuries they've had and out of necessity and out of guys playing so well, they had to give them more time in the lineup. Florida has not had a consistent rotation rhythm they can get used to for like a month. And you could tell offensively early on that made them a little clunky. Like Alex Condon, he's back and he's playing. He didn't look 100% to me. His normal lift and his bounce wasn't quite where it normally is. And it just wasn't a starting lineup they had in the whole season yet. So just that with the rotations, it's just going to take some getting used to. I do think Todd Golden needs to figure out who his starting 5 are and stick with it and let the rotations be what they make. At some point, you've got to go into the tournament in March knowing exactly who's going to play when.
Yeah. Alex kind of didn't really feel like himself last night. I mean, you kind of expect that. You ain't playing in a couple weeks. You don't expect to, practice at full speed, while you have an injury like that,
He looked like Janai Broom did when Florida played Auburn. Do you remember that game? Like Janai Broom, because he had been recently injured as well. Broom was just a little off in that game. He was still good because he's a really good player. I mean, he's probably going to win Player of the Year, he or Cooper Flagg. But you could tell when Florida played him, the bounce wasn't quite the same. The efficiency wasn't quite the same. It was just a little he's still good, but it was like 90% of what you normally have in Janai Broom. It felt the same with Condon last night. He had that great steal, and he went to the basket and got fouled. A fully healthy Alex Condon, flush as that gets fouled, it's an and one. Bench is going crazy. But, he got rejected by the rim because he's just not 100% healthy yet. It's obviously.
Yeah, hopefully you can go back home, win the A&M game, and then when you're going to play Alabama. I know they had a bad loss recently. Didn't they?
Alabama?
Yeah, didn't they just lose to –
They lost to Missouri.
Yeah, that's what it was. So that should be a top 10 game when they play, and then when you play them, you're going to have to score 100. I mean, it feels like every game they are right at 97, 105 every time. So, Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin and your backcourt are going to have to be, on their game. And you talk about a game where, Will Richard too. And you talk about a game where you can't fall, 12, 15 points in a hole. You happen to a team like that, you can forget it. Barring a merely perfect comeback, unless Alabama just falls and, they let Florida go on a 12-0 run, which, probably doesn't happen. But we'll see. 3 games left in the regular season. With the 3 games left, do you think they go 2-1 against A&M, Alabama, and then
Ole Miss?
Yeah.
The Ole Miss game's at home. So do you think you asked me if they go 2-1 in that stretch?
Yeah. A&M at home on Saturday, and then you go Wednesday at Bama, and then you play the last Saturday at home at Ole Miss.
You know what? They're going to go 3-0.
All right.
They're going to go 3-0. Look. You got the 2 games at home. They're going to beat A&M at home. I mean, game day's coming. It's at home. They're going to win that game. Then you go to Alabama. Everything you just said about Alabama is true. Alabama also plays no defense. They do not play defense. You got to score 100 to beat them, but they will score 100. That's the thing. So between Walter Clayton just played one of his worst games he's played in his Gator career. I think he's about to go on a rampage. So Walter Clayton, you get Alex Conlon back playing to be more like himself coming up. They're going to beat Alabama and then cap off the season at home. I just don't see them losing either of the games at home. And then the game in question was Bama. And then, look, if they're kind of locked in as a 2 seed after that, Dylan, I'm not going to say I want them to lose in the SEC tournament, but wouldn't be the worst thing.
Win in the tournament.
Early.
Okay. Why is that?
Because
you can rest?
Yes. I think it's a big – look, some teams, if you're a projected 10 seed and you go make a deep run in the SEC tournament, you're SEC runner-up or you win it all and you win the SEC tournament and that bumps you up from a 10 to a 7, then it's worth it. If Florida's going to be locked in at like a 2, and unless they win the SEC tournament, pretty much nothing they can do is going to bump them to a 1. And even then, I don't know how big of a difference that is ultimately. Is it not more beneficial to get basically a week's worth of rest and let Condon get 100%? Let Martin get 100%. Martin's basically 100% probably now, but let all these guys get to 100%. Is it not better to get that? I think last year, because they made it all the way to the SEC Championship last year, they played as many games as they could in the tournament. They were tired. They were gassed when they played Colorado in March Madness, and Micah Hand-Logden had just snapped his leg.
Yeah. Doesn't the tournament – I know they get – some teams get 1 bye, some teams get 2 byes. So Florida's first game realistically is going to be like that Thursday?
I think so, yeah.
So you would play that Thursday, say you lose, so that you're going to have an entire week because the first round of the tournament is that either depending on where you draw that Thursday or Friday.
That's right.
So you would get a week, yeah. I could see that, especially, because if you win out, you play that Thursday, and then do you play every day, or is it you play Thursday, Saturday, Sunday?
You play every day if you keep winning.
Thursday, Friday, yeah. That is, especially against the high-quality competition that they play. Are you going to the game Saturday?
No, I'm not.
I would like to go to the game. Dude, these ticket prices are insane.
They're crazy.
Most of the Gator football games are cheaper than the basketball games, man.
Less tickets, there's less tickets, bro. Supply and demand, my man.
Yeah. I mean, I'll let it go, but I ain't paying $200 to watch them play. Hell, I don't know. I'd pay to watch them to play anybody. I spent $150 on a ticket, college basketball, but it was when Zion's Duke team went to Florida State. And, of course, if you remember that game, Zion gets his eyeball poked out. He got clawed, so he get to play the rest of the game. Typical me. But it was still a hell of a game. And Cam Reddish hit a three with, like, less than 2 seconds, which was pretty awesome. Like, I wasn't a Duke fan the whole time. And then when he made that three, I was a Duke fan. And I was, like, high-fiving all the Duke fans around me. That was probably one of the top games I've ever been to.
Watching Duke and Florida State is like, ugh. It's like watching Satan.
Well, yeah, you're a Carolina fan.
And a Gator fan.
Yeah.
It's like watching Satan play himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to go to a game, but I ain't paying that much, man. That's
By the way, Duke already leapfrogged Florida before they even lost.
Yeah, that was cute. They were, why are they jumping two? It was like, it's funny. Everybody, that was the main conversation. The main conversation should have been Auburn's 1, Duke's 2, Florida's 3, and Auburn's lost to 2 and 3. Now, granted, they have one less loss, but it's funny how that conversation wouldn't really.
They got better wins than both. Also, that's the main thing, bro. The ACC is awful. I mean, Duke just gets this cakewalk of a schedule. It's insane, bro. I don't know, and they're freaking Duke too. It's that damn logo. If that was a different logo, they'd be ranked 5th.
Oh yeah, Cooper Flagg is the best player in the country.
Yeah, he is.
I'm excited what he can do when they get to March. So, all right, Graham, I'm done.
I got something else to run by you real quick.
All right, college football.
So everyone knows out there to the public masses, Dylan and I have been in a flag football league together for a couple of years now. And Dylan decided that he's too old and washed and gray.
I'm retired. To
play. So he officially retired.
When you eat these all day, it's not good for you.
Yeah, that's a problem, dude.
Yeah, it's a pound of nerd clusters.
So I was fully prepared because I had to miss the first weekend that we played, but I played the last 2 weekends. 2 weeks ago, I was fully prepared to come on this show and clown you for not playing because I was like, dude, what are you talking about? I played 4 games and I feel great. Dude, when I woke up that Sunday morning, your boy felt like he had been run over by a Mack truck, and then the truck went in reverse, and then forward, and then reverse again. Dude, getting out of bed hurt so bad, bro. Dylan and I, for context, everyone, Dylan, have you turned 27 yet? Or are you still 27? Okay, so you're 27. Yeah, your birthday is the same as my fiance. That's right. So we're both 27. So it's not like we're 57, but just getting out of bed with no warm-ups and going and sprinting doesn't quite hit the same. And your boy's been hurting a little bit.
I can only imagine. I know when I was 23, 24, and even before then. Nah, man, I'm trying to make this money on the weekend. I'm trying to golf and then do my pressure washing stuff on the weekend. So
if I
that was the main reason why I didn't do it, but that's another reason why.
So I've been better the last week or so. I've been better about because I normally go to the gym on a at least semi-regular basis, not literally every day, but a decent amount. I've been better about getting the cardio in, making sure the legs are moving, getting the blood flowing, getting the sweat in, burning the calories. So if I do that on a regular basis, my legs are conditioned for it. And then on Saturdays, I got to eat a banana and I gotta warm up. If I do those 2 things, then I'm normally all right. But if that doesn't happen, it ain't good, Chief. It's not good.
Number one, it's like, all right, I'm gonna try to coach. You gotta prepare yourself at least 2 days in advance. So you gotta drink, I guess for you, 2 bottles of water on Thursday, 2 bottles of water on Friday. You gotta stretch throughout those days so it don't catch up to you on Saturday and then you feel it on Sunday. You're still gonna feel it on Sunday, but you're not gonna feel it as much.
Yeah.
That's my advice for you. Does anybody listen? No.
Well, if only If only my coach coaching me through this would actually show up on Saturdays and play flag with me. That'd be cool.
No. I might show one weekend, but dog, these next couple weekends, like I got a track meet in Santa Fe this Saturday. I'm seeing Shane Gillis Saturday night the following weekend. He comes to Jax. TPC following weekend, then we go to Vegas right after, the weekend after that. So we are booking.
Well, TBC weekend is the playoffs.
That is March Madness, first weekend. No. Oh, for you. Yeah. When we're in Vegas, that'll be the first weekend of March Madness.
That's right.
So, damn, that's a short season. Y'all just started like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, but I think another season starts like right afterwards.
All right. I got to roll. You got sales calls, something like that.
We got places to go, people to see. We got to shake the hands, kiss the babies.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
All right. You can do that. And I'm going to push buttons on Jaguars today. So, till then, peace.